Before I get started with this video, let me say that I don't hope or wish for the fall/death of Rainbow Six Siege. This is the only game that I have ever played consistently and still enjoy this game to this day. I still play as much as I did when I started around 3.5 years ago, which I get is not a lot for some of the older players, but for me at least, it is a pretty long time. But back to my point. I don't want this game to fall or die, but some bad signs are becoming apparent, and I want to discuss if Rainbow Six Siege is dying, and if it is it possible for Siege to make a comeback? So, what makes me think Siege is starting to decline? The first and most obvious sign is the reduced player base. Usually when an operation comes out, there's a spike in players for a while, and it slowly comes back down until the next season. However, something different happened during Operation North Star. There was no spike in players. In fact, the player base actually dropped. The highest concurrent number of players from last month, which was June 2021, are equal to that from November of 2017. Basically, this means that the largest amount of players online at once in the month of June in 2021 is less than the largest amount of players online during the month of November in 2017. This clearly shows that there is a decline in the player base and that fewer and fewer people are continuing to play this game. Another sign that Siege is starting to fizzle out is the fact that some of the biggest content creators of Siege are beginning to leave. Two really big examples of this would be The Russian Badger and Meaty Marley. Both are content creators with subscribers in the millions that seem to be moving away from Siege. Another prominent example would be the Anthony Pitt one, who hasn't uploaded a video in nearly 9 months, which is much larger than the breaks of around 2 to 4 months that he usually takes. I'm not saying that all content creation for Siege is dying. There are still many prominent Siege content creators, such as Bikini Buddy or Get Flanked. But there definitely seems to be a drop in Siege content creation in the past year or so. And one last reason as to why I believe Siege may be on the decline would be the lack of communication between the devs and the more casual players of Siege. The development of Siege seems to be more focused on the Pro League side of things compared to the casual community. Most balancing changes, such as the removal of the ACOG from most operators or the removal of Zophia's Withstand, seem to revolve around Pro League. It feels that the wants and needs of the casual community within Siege are being ignored. Whether it's the introduction of a solo queue ranked mode, or bringing back the old operator icons and scoreboard, or the reintroduction of night maps, and it definitely doesn't help that the engine Siege is running on is outdated. I just feel like the devs of Siege need to take more input and feedback from the community rather than just focusing on pro players and the high elo PC players, like people who are plat and above, when looking at pick and win deltas or ban rates. And we know that Ubisoft can acknowledge the casual community. I mean, we saw this with the Boss G ACOG movement. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that if Ubisoft wants to keep their player base happy, maybe try listening to their concerns. And I know that the community can sometimes ask for different things or be unreasonable, but Ubisoft should at least try and acknowledge the community or do something, like allowing us to play night maps in maybe casual, or bringing back events like Outbreak. And I mean the event, not just the packs like they recently did in some lazy cash grab. But now let's talk about some ways to bring back the players Ubisoft has lost, because I don't want to just talk about problems and not provide any solutions. One big reason many people are leaving is a lack of new content. One of the YouTubers I mentioned before, Meaty Marley, actually said in a video that he would start to move away from Siege because of a lack of new content. And he's not wrong. Multiple other Siege YouTubers, such as your boy Roy and Sir Jeppy, have said that Siege desperately needs new content or the game will start to decline and die. It's been nearly, 2 years since we've received a new map, and nearly an entire year since we've received 2 new operators in 1 season. I mean, before, whenever I started playing during Operation Chimera, we would get a new map, 2 new operators, multiple new weapons, multiple new seasonal skins, and other really, really big core changes. But now we get 1 new operator, 1 new seasonal skin, no new weapons, and a reworked map, which in my opinion are usually not very good, And they also completely remove your ability to play the older version of that same map, which really sucks with things like Hereford Base or House. I understand that there's a limit to how much Ubisoft can add into the game, and the current global pandemic definitely doesn't help. But it's been 2 years since we've gotten a new map, and I feel like that would be way more than enough time to make multiple new maps. I also feel like Ubisoft could still add 2 new operators per season. I get that Ubisoft wants the game to go on for a long time, and there are only so many operators that can be added. But Siege is one of the top 10 games played during 2020, according to a Ubisoft earnings report. And that top 10 does not just consist of Ubisoft games. That's like not comparing Siege to Assassin's Creed and stuff. That is in the entire gaming industry, according to a Ubisoft earnings report. In the entire gaming industry, Siege is like in the top 10 in terms of games played during 2021. Siege has also made over $1 billion and is still going relatively strong. If Ubisoft were to add more resources into the development of Siege, I feel like this game might attract back some of the players that it's lost, and even some new ones. And it's clear that Ubisoft has the resources and ability to do so, but they keep on spending it on worthless projects like Extraction or that new Tom Clancy game, Define. I don't remember what it's called, but when you have a game that is making you this much money, you need to put resources into it in order to get resources back out of it. And another big reason people seem to be leaving Siege would be just the general direction Siege is going in. I mean, Siege was created to be a realistic FPS that depicted counter-terrorism operations as well as practice operations between Team Rainbow. But now it's focused on Rainbow being a sports team or attraction. The lore is focused on competition between operators and stadiums viewed by millions of people, which is kind of weird because Rainbow Six is supposed to be a relatively secret counter-terror organization composed of some of the best operators from around the world. It seems extremely weird for these operators to show off their gadgets and tactics to a crowd because it would render any of those tactics absolutely useless in the real world because, I mean, people would be expecting it. They know what each operator's gadget does and, what to expect. And all of this was done, once again, because Ubisoft wanted to focus on the Pro League side of things. And the Road to SI tournament was a branch between Siege and Pro League, but in the process, drowned out a large portion of the community that played Siege due to the semi-realism Siege provided. The Road to SI was sort of the beginning of the tournament and everything. It was first Siege to tap into that Pro League market, but at the same time, kind of drowned out a large portion of the community. Ubisoft also went down an unrealistic route. Some of the operators added to the game. Some glowing examples being the 2 operators added during Void Edge, which would be Yana and Oryx. And then there are also other things like the removal of night maps. And I mean, I'm personally okay with the somewhat unrealistic path Siege is going towards. I'm okay with it. I'm not one of those people saying, this sucks. I want Siege to go back. Well, actually, I do want Siege to go back to how it used to be, but I don't want to play the game anymore because of this direction it's headed in. I don't really care about that, but there are a good amount of people who do. And, I mean, if Ubisoft could just go back towards its roots, they could win back a lot of the older players that they lost. I mean, if they appealed to the realism Siege used to have, they could get back a lot of those players and maybe even get some new players. But in conclusion, no, Siege isn't dying, right? If someone tells you Siege is dying, they're probably just fear-mongering or something. But if action is not taken soon, it will start to decline and fast. I mean, we're already seeing this. Action needs to be taken soon or the game will head down that path. It's not dying right now, but it is, on the edge. Ubisoft can and should start putting more resources into Rainbow Six Siege to prevent the game from collapsing in on itself. More content needs to be added per season, or the casual community needs to be acknowledged, or at least have some sort of line of communication with the devs. And features that people actually want, like allowing people to play old events and custom games, should be added. I mean, this game is amazing, and nothing will ever provide a similar experience. But if Ubisoft doesn't get their act together, this game will not be able to sustain itself, and the community will continue to decline. And it sucks to see this happen. I love this game, and will probably continue to play it for as long as I can. But Ubisoft needs to step up and start investing time and interest into the game like they used to during Year 1 and Year 2 and Year 3. Well, yeah, that was my rant. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to leave any feedback, please just let me know in the comments. I hope everyone watching this has an absolutely great day. If you disagree with me, please let me know in the comments. I'll try to get back to you in the comments, obviously. But peace out and have an absolutely wonderful day.